Guys, another Founder Wisdom Pod VR edition today with Damian Moratti. He is in Croydon, Victoria, Australia, live from Oz. It's quite early in Oz today. It's 7:30-ish. Damian is drinking some strong but cold coffee. And we're going to discuss VR. We're going to discuss company Liminal. He's CEO, founder at Liminal. We're going to discuss about neuroscience, neurohacking, Apple Vision Pro, the future of VR or AR. Dan, or Dam, should I say, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your company there?
Yeah, thanks, Charles. So as you mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Liminal VR. So I started the company with my business partner, Nick, in, I guess late 2014, from conception. And yeah, we do lots of cool things, but I guess our marquee product is the Liminal platform, which is this glowy thing you see behind me. So that's a platform for VR experiences that are designed to change how people feel and perform. So we have lots of different categories of emotions. We have the sleep category that is opening up next week. So that yeah, it should be out by the time this podcast is released.
I have this invention in my mind since quite a while, because if I listen to some music, my state will change. I'm a very musical type. I think that's some part of what my dad's heritage gave to me. He always loved music on his side, so that's one. But I have always imagined this pod, for a lack of better word, that you would enter and it would tickle all your senses. So music, there might be some vibrations in there. There might be scents. There would be sounds. There would be temperatures, and it would change your state in like less than 2 minutes, Tony Robbins style. So how far do you think we are with let's call this invention the pod, and is Liminal working on this? Is that the finality? Is that the last point on the roadmap?
Yeah, well, I guess it might be worth me just touching on the history of VR and where we're at now and where things are going. So I think it's important when we talk about virtual reality, and I guess that there's different terms you can use. You mentioned AR, which is a little bit different. Then you have MR, and then recently spatial computing, although that term's also been around for a little while. And then you have the term metaverse as well. Like, what does that mean? How does that tie into it all? And then you also have XR as a catch-all term for extended reality. So there's lots of different technologies that are linked but have their own nuances, and sometimes there's different labels that are used for more marketing purposes than anything else. But I think, speaking about VR, because I guess I'm passionate about all XR technologies, but most of the work that we do is in VR. You're really talking about a technology that's been in development since at least the mid 1900s. Some would argue way earlier, from the invention of the stereoscopic plates and stereoscopic photography in the sort of mid 1800s, right? So where we're at now is that VR tech is actually really hard, and with the advent, with the introduction of the Oculus Quest, and the very first Kickstarter that they had in 2012, that tends to symbolize the era of new VR in the industry. That's where the latency really dropped, and you could have very comfortable experiences, and the cost came down. And then over the last sort of 10, 11 years, you've seen great strides that's been made in hardware. So the devices now are much thinner. You have pancake lenses. You've got a much smaller form factor. And obviously, as you mentioned, the Apple Vision Pro has just been released. And then we look into the future, and we can already see retinal level resolution headsets or glasses that have a display that's indistinguishable from reality, and a form factor not too dissimilar to like large sunglasses. In a prototype form, right? So we can quite clearly see, that there's been many years, decades, of development. We got to this sort of stage where the tech was finally useful, and now we're moving into this next stage where, hopefully we're on a path towards ubiquity. In terms of other sensors, things like, haptic gloves, and you mentioned temperature and other things like that, and pod type stuff. There are certainly people working on that. I've had a number of conversations with different people about, like, those different components. Bringing them all together is probably still a ways away. And then it's also like, how much hardware do you want? How much do you want to spend on it? Is the juice worth the squeeze, or do you just want to have very light form factor glasses that, have this super high resolution images with, really good audio, and that's enough. So I guess the jury's still out as to what the full mature, AR, VR, MR, XR, spatial computing stuff looks like. And a lot of it will just be trade-offs, like with anything, in regards to form factor and price and, technology and what's possible and what's not.
So how do you change a mental state of someone using Liminal? How do you get them to feel calmer and or more energized?
Yeah, great question. Well, I think you kind of touched on it earlier, and you're mentioning music, right? So music is a very powerful way to change your emotional state. So we're all very familiar with that. It happens like you might feel a bit down, and then there's a song that comes on, and that perks you up. So with virtual reality, obviously you still have all those tools. Like, if you look at conventional gaming, that can change your mood. If you watch an action movie, or a horror movie, all these things. There are many ways that we already know that you can change your mood, or help alleviate discomfort, or help aid sleep, or help you improve focus. What we have done is we've looked at all the ways that these things have been implemented across different media, and including VR. And then really, we created this thing called the Psych Docs, where we've simplified all of our research and created a really easy to use how-to guide. And we use that to guide us and our global network of partners as to how to build these experiences. But I guess long story short, it really depends on the category. There's different ways to induce different emotional states. And also, we have around 100 different experiences on Liminal now, and many of them are very different because, some people might listen to classical music or rain to help them calm down. Other people might want to calm down doing something more physical, or listening to more intense music. So what we learned early on is that, you can try to take a reductionist approach, and that's good to get some of the core ingredients for all the different categories. But then in the end, everyone is very unique. So you have to be able to create different types of experiences that cater to different people and their wants and needs.
Right. How do you guys make money? Does the Oz government fund a lot of the ops? And then what type of clients use your services?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So we've been around now, like I said, for around like 9 years ish. So how we've been making money is by delivering bespoke projects for clients, and also we have been successful with some government grants. You're right, but effectively our model has been, we work with clients, we deliver projects for them, whether it's training, simulation, marketing, clinical, whatever it might be. And then we take all the profits from whatever projects we do and reinvest them into Liminal. Liminal itself is a freemium subscription model, in the sense that we have many experiences that are free, and then you can subscribe or buy credit packs to unlock the other experiences. and disable things like psychometrics and have a slightly better experience. So we do have subscriptions on Liminal, but the bulk of our revenue has for R&D and development has been from delivering bespoke training, simulation, clinical stuff.
Right, and the product, it seems to be a want, not a need. Is it still this early adopter / innovative buyer profile that you sell to, or is it become more common / routine use, meaning VR? Like, is it commonly used in businesses, or it's still like the little innovative person that brings it up?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and look, I wouldn't phrase it so much as a want versus a need. I think it's more so the use case, right? So like I will have people that will phone me up and say, I've got this great idea for a VR experience. I've got this PowerPoint presentation, and I want to put the PowerPoint presentation like in VR. I'm like, well, okay, so do you want it to be like immersive or interactive? It's like, no, just want the PowerPoint presentation in VR. And then my response will often be like, have you tried PowerPoint? So it's you're correct that in the early days, because there's a real wow factor to VR, and in fact we have an entire awe category because it's so easy to induce awe in virtual reality. That in the early days when maybe after the Oculus Kickstarter, that VR was really being hyped up. People were maybe using it more for a want than a need in the sense that it was this cool tech. Just doing something in VR made your company cool, but it wasn't really truly useful. Whereas what we're finding with a lot of our clients is that the experiences that we're creating are like genuinely useful for training staff in a whole range of different ways. And certainly the Liminal platform, we've been getting some amazing feedback from people that these experiences have really improved their lives in significant ways. So to give you some just examples of training and practical use cases, we have, for example, a client that has to they run a company where they recycle metal, right? And then they have this hydraulic machine. And if that hydraulic machine goes down, everything stops. So you have to train technicians as to how to quickly troubleshoot the hydraulic machine, work out what's wrong and fix it. And it's one of those things where if you don't turn a lever, you get sprayed with boiling hot hydraulic fluid and your life is changed forever, right? So being able to train people in virtual reality to do things like that is actually like there's a real world ROI and also massive safety stuff that you're better off making mistakes virtually than in the real world. And then we've recently delivered the Positive Leadership Training Suite, which is a soft skills and management training suite that we've funded through WorkSafe Victoria, which is a state government organization. And then we've done lots of cool things like in the behavior change space, like for example, pro-environmental behavior change campaigns, where we've actually conducted a study afterwards and witnessed a 20% reduction in single-use plastics, compared to a control. So, you're right. Early on, it was very much like, okay, well, this is cool. No one really knows what to do with it. Sometimes the use cases were a bit gimmicky, but now, looking at a decade down the line, we're really seeing VR tech fit really nicely to solve a lot of these really important problems.
Right. What about the use case in military to train for a combat zone, make less error? And what about treating PTSD post war in military?
Yeah. So I think it's a very good use case for military. We have dabbled, in some stuff there, especially like to build, I guess, resilience and emulate pressure. So there's some things that you have to do IRL, right? So I was in a two commando company in the Army Reserves when I was like 18. There are, you have to feel the pavement. You have to, go through real world like suffering to become a soldier. Although to be honest, I was never a great soldier. It wasn't really my thing, although I tried. But then there are other things, like more like technical things and strategic things that you can really run through over and over again in VR, and just you know, if A happens, do B. If this happens, do that, and then you'll be able to emulate safe pressure to see how you know, how you execute certain procedures under pressure. And pressure can be quite easy to induce in virtual reality, and also very, very safe.
Right. A good solution to fix that is not to get involved in the war, right? How do you make their training better and reduce PTSD? Well, and not start any.
Well,
But I mean, yeah, training them to make good decisions, because people that go at war, obviously, they're not the ones deciding, right? They're kind of pawns on a chess piece.
mhm.
So if we can better prepare them to minimize damage on both sides, I guess that would be the winning case here.
Yeah, and I didn't touch on the PTSD thing, but that's also very relevant. So, like oftentimes people with PTSD, I think people in the general public, maybe don't really understand what PTSD is like. Like oftentimes, it's not so much that they're having like flashbacks that you would like you would be exposed to in a movie depicting someone with PTSD. Although certainly that kind of stuff happens, but sometimes it can just be like overwhelming to go to the supermarket. There's um, uh, too many different things going on. People everywhere where you can't really feel 100% safe and know what's behind you and things like that. So being able to introduce people to new environments, or even just common environments, and then having them face certain unpleasant things about the past by like reenacting parts of them. All that has been shown to have really, really positive effects on people.
Right. There's a lot of talks nowadays about an AGI world, kind of Ready Player One world, in which there's a part of the population that is addicted to serotonin and never leaving their house with a VR headset on. What do you think
Mhm.
about that reality? Do you think there's high chances of that being a thing, people never coming out of these virtual world, or is that far-fetched?
Well, so I think it depends on a number of things like time frames and like exactly what we're talking about. And I guess what we're talking about when we talk about the metaverse, or what these virtual worlds look like. So maybe to touch on that, I'll speak to a very famous image, that you have a homeless person wearing a virtual reality headset, right? And that is like the stereotypical like dystopian future, like where the narrative being we are going to forget about our lives, and just be in this VR fake world, looking silly to people walking past, but not actually really accomplishing anything. So I think that there's a few things there. One is what you're comparing it to, right? So if you're comparing, being in VR to like running, you're starting an environmental tech startup, right? But you choose to stay in VR doing the equivalent of a virtual Candy Crush. Well, then, yeah, okay. Well, that's obviously really bad. If you are like a long-term hospital patient, um, or you're limited in your movements or your resources for whatever reason, like being in virtual worlds compared to staring at a blank wall all day, or being on the street or what have you, is actually a huge step forward and an improvement in life, even though it looks super dystopian from the outside looking in. So I think it really depends what you're comparing it to. And then it's also what are you doing? So if you're meeting up with many people online and you're working towards a goal or a project, or you're collaborating on something, that's also very different to watching YouTube videos more immersively. So I think you're correct that it's something we have to be aware of. We don't want people, we see people wasting, quote unquote, wasting their lives on the mobile devices. We don't want to take it a step further and have the same thing, but fully immerse. But I think it really comes down to the situation and what you're actually doing in VR.
Right. How is Apple Vision Pro changing the game now?
Yeah, I think it's great. So I started Liminal with Nick in, like I said, it was late 2014, and being business person, we did a full SWOT analysis and all the market research and stuff, and then about a year to 18 months later, the 5-year market projections actually were downgraded by $90 billion. So just after we started Liminal, you had this realization that it wasn't going to take off like maybe smartphones did, but it's still like this fundamental technology. And even back then in 2014, people were wondering when Apple was going to enter the market and what they were going to come up with. So Apple coming in now with a very high quality headset to show people what the tech is going to be able to do in the future is really huge and very beneficial to the industry. And I think Mark Zuckerberg recently even said that he sees that as basically a confirmation that Meta were on the right track to do what they did. So I think now you have not only Apple, not only Meta, but Google, Samsung, and Qualcomm announced a partnership a couple of months ago about a new virtual reality headset and operating system. You have virtually every major tech company in the world that is investing billions in, let's call it XR technology. So in general, that's a good thing for someone like myself that runs the VR company.
Love it. Where can people find out more about you, Damian, and the company?
Yeah, so we have our website, liminalvr.com. We also have the usual socials and a YouTube channel and stuff. So I invite everyone to check us out, and you can download Liminal for free from Meta on the Meta Quest 2 and Meta Quest Pro. So I recommend everyone who has a headset to download Liminal and give us a try.